verbal riot.
How's it going, guys? I'm back, and you know I had to talk about this movie. And what movie am I talking about? You guys should already know, man. The American Society of Magical Negroes. And yeah, this movie was everything I thought it would be, and everything I thought it wouldn't. This was bad. This was bad, but and it's not even good bad, right? Because I feel like at least with Madam Web, I had a good time because even though it was a bad movie, I was enjoying how bad it really was, and it seems like everybody else was kind of in on the joke. Yeah, this movie doesn't have that, and it's it's really frustrating. I guess is the word I'm looking for. It's frustrating, it's cringe, it's to me, feels dated. Like, I feel like this movie would have been praised 2 years ago, but I think a lot of people are kind of starting to what's the word I'm looking for? Wake up a little bit to the BS that's been going on in Hollywood, and so I think more people are gonna frown on this movie than they realize. And for good reasons. For good reasons. This movie goes out of its way to just basically nail talking points, man. It feels like the writer, who is the writer and director of the film, actually, but it feels like the director read a bunch of posts on Black Twitter and decided to make a whole movie based on Black Twitter. You know, like this movie is supposed to be a trope. It's supposed to be making fun of a trope. I'm sorry, a trope of the quote unquote magical Negro in Hollywood in movies, right? Like you had movies like The Green Mile. You had the Legend of Bagger Vance, right, with Will Smith. You had Radio. Oh my God, and he was a black retard, by the way. So he was even more magical. Yeah, Radio, played by Cuba Gooding Jr. There's a whole list of of the quote unquote magical Negro in Hollywood, and it is a trope. Okay, to Hollywood's shame, you know, progressive and inclusive Hollywood, to their shame, for years, that's all they would cast black folks as. We were either the magical Negro or a stereotype, right? The drug dealer, the gangbanger, the strong single mom who has to raise her kids in the ghetto, right? And this was up to 2008 with progressive Hollywood, right? Um, but this movie is supposed to spoof a trope. The problem is that this movie actually thinks it's a movie, and it instead of instead of bringing like some nuance or bringing like some clever comical, you know, writing to this. It's like I said, it just looks like any talking point you would find on Black Twitter right now. It's bad, y'all. Like it's and not even in an entertaining way. I sat there and I went with a group of guys. You know, I went with, you know, Chris Gore, you guys know him. I went with Paulie, the Latino slant. I went with just a bunch of guys that you guys probably already watch. And I was sitting there and I could feel my nails clawing into my seat because it was so cringe. And the craziest thing about this movie is it's not a movie for or about really black people. This is a Gen Z movie. This is a movie about young Gen Z anxiety. Anxiety. Sorry, I'm fumbling over my words today. But it's a movie for Gen Zers. This isn't a movie for adults. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't look. If you're gonna do a movie like this, you know you got to lean in. You got to go all in with it, right? You got to be ridiculous. And this movie shies away from the points that it's trying to make. Right? It's it. Look, this movie would have been dramatically, dramatically different if somebody like Richard Pryor or Paul Mooney or Dave Chappelle. If someone with black with edge wrote this film, it would have been hilarious, right? Chris and Gary from Nerdrotic talked about this on the show the other day. Key and Peele did a much better version of this in one of their sketches, where they have the two magical Negroes kind of fighting each other in this Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat type way, and it was hilarious. It was just done better, and to go from that to this movie, it's just rough. It's rough, man. Now, I will say this, and again, this movie was made a long time ago, you guys, like a long time ago. Like this movie was made. It came. A friend of mine who came with us last night saw this movie 2 years ago. Now, it's not uncommon for Hollywood to shelf a movie for a little bit because they want to do rewrites or reshoots and polish it up a little bit. So it's not uncommon. This happens in Hollywood all the time. The weird thing about it though is my friend told me they didn't make one change to the movie he saw 2 years ago. So basically, it was just sitting on the shelf for 2 years for no reason. And the crazy thing is, it would have played better 2 years ago, right? Like I said, 2 years ago, it was like the height of the quote unquote woke, you know, scene. It was, 2 years because now people are starting to realize this is some dumb shit. But 2 years ago, without this would have flown with no problems. Okay, no problems. People would have ate this up. During 2022, oh, they would have ate this shit up. But it just doesn't fly today. So this movie starring this cast, the lead is played by Justice Smith, sorry. Who I have never seen in any other film. He has a lot of things to his credit, but I think they're all side characters. Obviously, he wasn't that memorable for me to even like. I still don't know who this guy is. You have David Allen Greer, who a lot of you guys know from In Living Color. He's done a little side things here and there. You know, a decent actor and a funny guy, right? Just not in this movie, or not the way he could have. He could have been with a better writer. And then you have these other people who I honestly don't know. And so, well, I'm sorry. There's Aisha Hens, or is that her name? I believe she's playing the Wicked Witch in the new Wicked movie, the Wizard of Oz movie that's coming out. So those are like the really known actors, I guess. But again, it doesn't matter if your actors are known or not. If the material is good, man, I could watch any indie movie with actors I don't know. It's just that none of them were good in this film. And the guy who directed and wrote the film, who's questionably black, we're still trying to figure that out. This guy, Kobe Libby. Kobe Libby, he doesn't have a lot to his credits, and I understand why. But this guy, again, who's questionably black, definitely ethnic of some kind, but he might be a combo baby for all I know. Maybe he has mixed parents, or he has whatever. Um, I don't know where his experience of black culture comes from. By looking at him, I'm going to say he doesn't know a lot about black culture. And you would ask yourself, then why did the other black actors follow him? And plain and simple is people have to pay rent. People have to eat. Madam Web got made, you know. I mean, it got made. Madam Web, starring Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson got made, right? Because these actors have to eat. So, you know, you'll take a lot of shit, if you got rent due, right? But this director, I don't understand how he wasn't coached or given notes that this isn't hitting, man. Were there not focus groups who watched this film? So okay, look, you guys, you hear me slamming this movie. You're not, and I'm not giving you details, right? So I'm gonna give you some details. Like I said, this movie is not about black people, right? It's about a stressed out Gen Zer, played by the actor I just brought up. I keep forgetting his name because he's that forgettable. Justice Smith. And again, no shade to him. It's just that I hated this character. I hated this character for a few reasons. Not because he was wimpy and, of course, I mean, that played a part in it, but it's the fact that there was just no growth until mysteriously at the end where he finds his balls and gives this Barbie-like speech, right? Uh, America Ferrera Barbie speech. If you haven't seen the movie, actually, you know what? Watch Barbie. Some people shit on that movie. I say it's worth the watch. Watch Barbie. It's on streaming now. You can watch it for free if you have the streaming. But Justice Smith, his character is just unlikable. Like, you're supposed to feel bad for them. For him. You're supposed to like sympathize for him. You're supposed to like feel his struggle. I felt nothing but frustration watching this character. And this movie started out seeming like it was going to be clever, right? Because it had all the tropes. There were even two funny moments in the whole film, right? And one of those funny moments is them spoofing some of the old movies I mentioned before, like The Green Mile and Bagger Vance and some of these other uh, magical Negro tropes, right? So that was genuinely funny. Okay, the problem was though that movie. I mean that part of the movie was only there for 20 minutes, and the rest of the film turns into something completely different. It turns to a love triangle story, right? And again, nothing to do with black people, except for the fact that again with that speech he gives at the end about how his whole life has been ruined by white folks, right? And just the premise of the movie, by the way, guys, the whole premise of the movie is the reason why the society of magical Negroes exists is because it's our job. It's black people's job to make white people feel safe and happy because otherwise they'll kill us. I'm not even kidding. If we don't keep white people happy, we will die. I, 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 you see how I could barely talk? This is how I felt the whole time watching that movie. I was speechless. Like people like after the movie, we're all talking about it. I couldn't talk about it after because I there was something inside me that I think if I really, really let myself think about what was happening, I would have raged, man. I would have torn some shit up. That's how frustrated I was. And I don't think this movie is going to do what they think is going to do. There's not going to be any social awareness from this. There's not going to be all, yeah, you know what? I'm black and I'm frustrated by white people too. How many times are we gonna get that? Like, really, how many times are we gonna get that? Like, and what's even funnier about this whole dumbass movie is all of his struggles have nothing to do with white people. He's insecure, he's an artist, he's, wimpy, he's timid, he's all these things, right? He would be that same way around black people. He would have been the same way around black people. It's a poor, poorly done movie. And this director, I hope he gets no more work after this. Like, I'm sorry. It was funny is I'm getting madder now thinking about the movie than when I was watching it because now I'm just thinking about how this guy did the bare minimum. He did the bare minimum, and he's a hack. Like I said, if you're gonna do a movie like this, you lean into it, man. You lean into it. If Richard Pryor wrote this movie, it would have been raw. If Dave Chappelle wrote this movie, it would have been controversial, but in a good way. If Paul Mooney wrote this movie, are you kidding me? We the problem is with the black community and especially in black Hollywood is we don't have those kind of creators anymore. We don't have those kind of artists and writers anymore. Just edgy, but in the right way. In the right way. I mean, we still have Chappelle. Luckily, we still have Chappelle, but we just don't have that black, raw, in your face, but in a smart and funny way. I look, you know what? It's funny because he, like I said, he gives this Barbie like speech at the end, the lead character, right? He gives this Barbie like speech, and it's funny I compare it to Barbie because Billie Eilish just won an Oscar for her song "What Was I Made For," right? And the whole time, that song was actually in my head because I was thinking, who is this made for? Who was this movie made for? Because it was not made for black people. It wasn't made for white people. It wasn't made for intelligent people. Like, I don't know who this movie was made for. And I think honestly, if I were, and look, Focus Entertainment, they're known for their indies, so I think they'll be fine. It's not going to crush the studio. I know that Universal uh backed the movies, Universal Pictures. So at the end of the day, this movie, I think it'll probably do okay for what it was predicted to do. Right, like this wasn't meant to be a big box office movie. It wasn't meant to be a big popcorn movie. This isn't an MCU film, right? This is just an indie film. This isn't Harry Potter, even though that's also who they were making fun of as well. It wasn't that, so it might do fine. Would I ever recommend this movie? Hell no, hell no. Please do not waste your time. Do not waste your money. Uh, there's just better shit out there for you guys. Anyway, that's my quick review, man. I don't want to even talk about it that much longer because there's nothing else to say other than the one bright spot in the film, and this is hilarious to me. The one bright spot in the film was the lead actress, who was played by, I believe her name is Anli Bogan. Anli Bogan. She was very charismatic, very likable, and the fact that she shined in that movie, in a movie about magic black people, should tell you everything. Okay? That should tell you everything you need to know about this movie. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching the show. I know I've been going for a while. Like I said, I had some things to work out with YouTube. But feels good to be back. And please, by all subscribe to the channel. That would help me a lot. You can also follow me on X under Verbal Rise Show. And I'll talk to you guys soon.